Hello, welcome to What the Flick on this rainy day. It's raining. Again, we're all panicking. But it's not as tumultuously wet as anything in Pacific Rim Uprising. The sequel to Pacific Rim, which nobody needed. But here it is.
Yeah, but I'm kind of glad they made. All right, so Pacific Rim Uprising catches up with the son of Stacker Pentecost, now played by John Boyega. What, you're laughing that I knew his name?
It's an amazing name.
Stacker Pentecost is right there with Flipper Purify from
Max Power.
It's like an anagram.
So anyway, so John Boyega is his kind of rowdy son who's, fallen afoul of the law, scavenging parts. Ends up back in the Jaeger program, and it turns out there's still battles to be fought, giant robots, there may be drones that are getting created to stave off the coming kaiju, maybe not. It's kind of a complicated story, but in the end, there sure enough is plenty of giant robots fighting, and that's really all you need to know. Also, real quick, before we watch the clip, I'm gonna let everybody know we are now sponsored by Atom Tickets, and we can now offer you a discount, $5 off if you use the code WTF5 if you buy your tickets for this movie, should you decide to see it after we review it, because I think it's worth seeing. But let's watch a clip.
There are pilots we remember as legends, but they didn't start out that way. They started out like us. This is our time to make a difference. Do you understand? Jaeger pilots, do you understand?
One way to find out.
That's what I'm talking about!
It's worth seeing if you could get it for $5 off. That's why you should go see it.
I was pleasantly surprised, I have to say, because the first movie, I'm like, great, giant robots and giant monsters and directed by Guillermo del Toro, I love this. And then maybe it was just the screening that I attended, which was on the Warner lot, but it was, the 3D was so dark and so muddy, and all the fights seemed to take place at the bottom of the sea or at night in the rain, that I couldn't see anything. I couldn't see the giant robots beating up the giant monsters. And in this movie, I could see it. Like, there's the sun is shining and it was in 2D and I could see what was going on. I was like, all right, yeah. When they stop fighting and the people talk, it's like, whatever. But when the giant monsters fight the giant monsters are fighting giant robots.
Yeah, but a lot of the time, giant robots are fighting giant robots, and that's when it becomes Transformers. And Guillermo del Toro's touch is woefully missing here.
But again,
the artistry, the weirdness, like it's not
But
there.
a million times more visually coherent than any Transformers movie, you have to admit.
Oh yeah, you can tell what the giant robots are doing when they're hitting each other.
Exactly.
The punches they're landing.
We can't take this for granted anymore.
No, this is true. This is true. I feel like the stuff that you were there for, the over-the-top ridiculousness that we've all come to see, doesn't really come until the very, very end. And I'm not going to say what the image is that like made us all laugh out loud, but it's cool. Like it's really cool when it happens. But it's a lot of slogging and a lot of like dumb, pretty people talking to each other before that.
Yeah, the script is pure like 1940s World War II squadron cliches. It's like this is not
one another's chops.
Yeah, and like this. People bitch about spoilers, so I'm not going to say. But it's the kind of thing where like it's so predictable in certain ways. We're like, oh, that person said that thing, so that's going to happen later. And
John Boyega can only do so much. Like John Boyega can show up and be a good actor, as he can be solid and be charismatic. But when he's saddled with idiotic stuff to say, and then he and Scott Eastwood have these like chest thumping battles with each other.
Yeah, it made me miss. What's the great John Boyega movie from before Star Wars?
Attack the Block?
Attack the Block, yes. I was thinking about Attack the Block.
Using his accent again, yes, good.
I like this movie.
Please tell us.
Look, it's not great, but it does exactly what it says on the box, and that's all I really,
But does it? Does it do exactly?
Yes, pretty much. There's Pacific Rim, there's an Uprising.
Bam, bam, bam.
Right, it gets the title right, which is tough for some movies to do. I'm looking at you, Alone in the Dark, because nobody's alone, and it's not that dark. House of the Dead, there's no house. I like this movie. Now, granted, I had a couple of cocktails beforehand. And
we were sober.
I was sober and I still enjoyed myself.
Yeah, Nick turns to me, he's like, this is gonna be trash, right? Your son was watching. And I said, yeah, it's gonna be glorious trash. And sure enough, it is. It's totally silly, dopey, and I was totally okay with it. There's almost no subtext to it, and I didn't mind that.
Almost no subtext. What would the subtext be if there were to be any?
I don't know. I mean, there's hardly any text, much less subtext.
I mean, there's a weird deal that we make with movies like this, where it used to be that studios made movies about people talking to each other, and then you had to go to the drive-in to see the sort of disreputable, fun movies about robots and monsters and car races and superheroes and the things that are now what is in the mainstream cinema. And the deal is, all right, we're taking the hacky, fun, trash genre stuff, but we're gonna dress it up and we're gonna give it real actors and real writing and that kind of thing. And this movie doesn't do that. It basically just gives it a budget. You know, so this is a completely this is like watching a Japanese kids show with stars in it and like a lot of money spent on the effects. But if you approach it at that level, it's okay.
But in that regard, though, if we're looking for that, like it could have been even more over the top and even more knowing in its own, like wallowing in its own ridiculousness. Like I would have enjoyed that. Like this means it. I think this movie.
Oh yeah, no, that would take better writing. Yeah. to know what it's doing.
It's not silly enough for me because the stuff that happens at the end that is nutty and silly. I'm like, thank you, finally, here we are.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I want to say the director. I'm sorry, really fast. The director, Stephen DeKnight. This is his first feature.
Yes,
he's done a lot of television before.
Lots of television. Yes. A lot of the Netflix Marvel stuff, definitely, and I think some other like
Daredevil,
things.
Smallville, Angel. He's done a lot of television. So.
Look, the first Pacific Rim definitely knows that it's silly, and this one takes itself a little seriously. That's okay. It's fine. It's not based on what they had to work with from the first film. There's not really an opportunity to get all that serious, or at least they decide not to get all gritty. So I was okay with it. Is it a great movie? No. Is it something I'm glad we saw on the big screen? Yeah. Am I apologizing for it? Maybe, but
if you have fun, that's great.
Yeah.
I think also, speaking of doing what it says in the box, I mean, this, like Tomb Raider, feels very calculated in its marketing to the Asian movie-going audience.
Definitely.
The Chinese movie-going audience, especially.
Apparently, the only reason that this even exists is because it was a much bigger hit in Asia than it was in the United States.
Makes total sense. There you go.
I'd watch a third one of these.
Well, you're probably gonna get to.
Good.
So congrats.
Yeah, weirdly enough, this movie ends in it's not a spoiler to say it ends in a way that suggests sequels, but it weirdly ends in exactly the same way as the Independence Day sequel ends in terms of how it's gonna make those sequels happen. And of course, that Independence, we're never getting that third movie, but maybe we'll get the Pacific Rim third one, who knows?
Fingers crossed. Okay, so what are your numbers then? I'm saying 5. It's okay, it's not dopey enough.
6.8, I had a good time, even though Scott Eastwood is the Beatlemania of Clint Eastwood.
Oh, he's trying to do like the squinty kind of swagger here and there, but
it's not quite there.
There's no there, yes.
I give it a 7, but that was probably the booze talking.
All right, so our kind of sober number is then a 6.3. It is at 47% on the tomato meter. I'm not sure it's that bad, but if you want dumb fun, here you go.
Right. Also, one last thing as a reminder, if you go and buy your tickets for this movie through Atom Tickets, enter the code, atom.com, add in your code WTF5 when checking out, and it'll give you a $5 discount. So if you decide to go see this on the big screen, which I think this is better seen on the big screen.
If you're gonna see it.
Or sit close at your TV at home.
Bye.